Hi everyone, welcome to the Futures Initiative podcast. My name is Tatiana Bertolucci. I'm a PhD student in anthropology here at the CUNY Graduate Center, and I'm also a Futures Initiative Fellow. At the Futures Initiative, we believe a university worth fighting for is one that contributes to the public good and one that does work that is in genuine connection with the communities that it serves. This means that we are worried about and we care about who gets in the academy, how people are trained, and what kind of future we are building together. And today we are going to talk about something that matters to a lot of people, whether you are a first-generation college student and you are just starting out, if you are a graduate student navigating academia, if you are a faculty member just mentoring the younger generation, or if you're anyone that has ever wondered what it really takes to build a meaningful life in higher education. We are talking about transitions. How do you transition out of academia into the job market? What are the types of skills that you build that you can carry on with you into a new institution? How do you position yourself, especially in the beginning of your career, in a landscape that is feeling more and more uncertain? And what does it actually look like to do equity-centered work in institutions that sometimes were actually not designed to do that? And our guest here today is someone that has been navigating that and knows this terrain firsthand. I'm really excited to welcome the beloved Dr. Megan Henriquez. Megan is a Futures Initiative Fellow alum and is currently a Prodigy Plus Fellow at SUNY Farmingdale. While she was with us at FI, she moderated public conversations at the intersection of science, justice, and community, and she has been putting those skills to work ever since graduating. So, Megan, we are super excited to have you. Welcome.
Hi everyone. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. The first thing we want to talk about is this moment of transition itself, right? When you are stepping out of your, graduating your course, stepping out of a fellowship, stepping out of this known institution that somehow shaped you, and then you start to transit into a new institution, right? And usually it comes with a lot of uncertainties, right? Who am I now? Do I belong in this new place? What am I going to be and what am I going to do? So tell us a little bit, how was that moment for you?
So I graduated last year. I walked in June 2025, and I was shocked at how empty you feel after it. So after I defended, you're on that high, you're very proud of yourself. And then in the following months, it's this sense of exactly like what you said. Who am I? This dissertation has defined my life for me for the past 8 years at that point. And now it's over. And now what comes next? And I'm going to say I probably have it a lot easier than a lot of other people do in that I managed to stay in New York for this new position. I managed to continue my dissertation work, and my current position allows me to sort of build out my own research agenda that's based in my current area of knowledge. And so I'm very fortunate that I get to do that, but you do kind of feel like a little dinghy boat out in the middle of the ocean, whereas you used to be tied to the tugboat that was taking you out. That might not make complete sense, but you were tied to this institution, and now you're an individual. And who are you is the question that comes out of that. And it's also, I had so many friends when I was here at the Graduate Center, a lot of them from FI. I made really, really close friends at FI. And, you're moving to a new place where you don't have that sense of community anymore. So that was very jarring. And, things take time to build up. And so I'm confident that I will be able to build a community regardless of where I am. But it is kind of like a fledgling being pushed out of the nest. It's like, you did all of this thing. Woo, congratulations, good for you. Now go off and build.
Yeah. And I imagine that within figuring that out, who you are, you're, leaving the institution, there is also the challenge of translating what you've done in the past into this new world of institutions that you are applying for jobs at. And I'm imagining that, well, at Futures Initiative, we are not only trained as researchers, right? We are being trained as collaborators, as public thinkers, as change makers of institutions themselves, in a way. So when you were in this moment that you are kind of redefining yourself, how did you work through translating these skills from your fellowship, from the experience as a graduate student here, into the applications for jobs like the Prodigy Plus or others that you applied for? Did the institutions understand what you were doing before, what you were, where you're coming from?
Yeah, I think that a lot of institutions want to see your skills as a researcher. They want to see all of those traditional things like your academic record, how much you've published, your teaching load, all of that. But there are a number of soft skills that you need in order to be successful on the market as well, and that's being able to publicly discuss your research, to be able to work collaboratively on a team, to be able to think creatively and come up with creative projects and actually see them through. And those are all skills that I learned through FI, which I was able to sort of tweak to become more palatable on the academic market as well. So it's like things like, when I was at FI, I was the communications director, and being able to put together a newsletter, to put together social media posts. Those are not unimportant skills. Those are things that, as the world becomes more and more online based, are super important, and things that you really should highlight on any sort of CV or any sort of job application moving forward. Everything you do is important. Every single little thing can be explained in a way that fits the job that you're looking for.
And did you find creative ways to translate it? How do you tell, oh, I did a newsletter into this is important for this teaching position because? How did you translate one thing to the other? Do you remember?
Well, you can say things like, probably isn't exactly what I said, but I can convey important information in visually appealing and succinct and concise ways, something like that. Because outside, it's important for your own line of research to be able to do that, to allow people to understand and be interested in what you do, but also for like departments and schools, institutions in general. That's something that they want to see. They want to see that the people who work for them are able to communicate to the public and are able to spread their message further as well.
And I think that's such valuable advice, both for, people that sometimes are coming into the graduate courses, having community-based skills, relational skills, or people like me that have decided to do the graduate studies way later in life. So you have a whole career before that. So I'm listening to you is just like such a valuable advice of thinking about these skills as also valuable and how do you translate them, and remembering that those are also important things that you've done. Everything you've done is important, is something that I think many of us need to be reminded of. So thank you for that advice. And I think this gives us a really good foundation on the transition moment itself. And I want to get a little bit about the work now. How is that going and the day-to-day? And one of the things that I've been thinking about is that at Futures Initiative, again, we have these values that are not super common in academia, like being non-hierarchical, doing much more collaborative work than in other places, trying to be very student-centered and equity-centered, right? What does that look like at other places? How do you carry this with you or not? Are you able to apply a little bit of it or not? How is that translation going?
I think it varies a lot from institution to institution. I am fortunate enough to have enough sort of leeway and flexibility and autonomy in my own teaching and my own sort of professional development there, where I can really incorporate student-centered learning. I constantly take feedback from my students throughout the semester to even say, like, what's going well, what's not going well, how can I restructure these lectures to make the information more digestible, to make it more engaging. And even in my own personal research, which is the other arm of that, I can still form collaborations internationally, within the country, and have many other outlets in terms of like informal science communication and outreach, and community engagement as well. So I think that is super variable across schools. And again, I'm very fortunate in that I'm able to hold these FI values very close in my own practice. But I know that's not the case for a lot of other academics who are at institutions maybe that are feeling pressure right now to, you know, buck this idea of diversity, equity, inclusion, community-centered and based learning, things like that. And I mean, that's a very difficult thing to navigate. And I think if not in the academy, there are still other places outside that would allow you to potentially fill those niches and those needs.
Yeah, and I think there's something about, and that's where my next question was also going to, that is what happens if you had experienced this, that is when these values are not translated, right? Or they're not immediately recognized or legible in this new institution, and you're still trying to adapt, respect the new institution, but also not lose yourself within it. I don't know if you have experienced that or not.
I think if these are values that are important to you, you'll always find a way to be able to incorporate it. And it might be thankless work. It might be work that's even maybe actively pushed back against. But as long as it's something that you enjoy and something you love to do and something that you see great value in, it's really important to make space. Even if the space doesn't exist, you make it happen. You say, you know, I'll take on this extra responsibility because this is something that's important to me and I want to do it. I don't care if I don't get paid for it. I don't care if I don't get credit for it. But this is something that I need to do in order to feel fulfilled myself and in order to build the community and support the community in ways that I can't being in the structure right now.
Yeah, and I think when I started at FI, at Futures Initiative, we were discussing something similar about, you know, how do you translate the values within more difficult times. And you said something to me that was, that I remember to today, that is you build your community and you find your community within the spaces.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter the institution only, because there's always someone else out there that is looking at the world in ways that you look at the world and then can help you through it. And I think part of what you're saying that is if you hold this and you believe in it, you will also start building that community within the institution itself. So
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I found in academia that for me, it feels very much like a home. I am very happy here. This is where I want to stay. And I feel like because of that, in every situation, I feel a little bit more confident to say, you know, these are the things I believe in. These are the things I want to do. These are the things I want to work on and in. And I've been fortunate enough to find people in every institution that I've been on that hold similar values and have helped build something outside of just the work.
Yeah, and I'm wondering also, thinking about the listeners that are not in academia and not outside here, how do you connect this to something larger? What does this university as a public good, the university we believe that is worth fighting for, mean in your actual practice? What does that mean for people that are not directly engaged in the academic world?
I mean, now more than ever, education needs to be a public discourse. right? We need to be able to speak to one another, to learn from one another, and we need to value that still. And so, academia, I feel like, has had this problem where a lot of people see it as the ivory tower, right? Something that's inaccessible, some place that's not for them, some place where everyone speaks basically a different language. So outside of doing your research and teaching and all of that, it's super important to continue to engage the public. And you're even in a better position, maybe not a better position, but you're also in a good position to do that outside of academia. If you value and cherish knowledge and learning and discourse, then now is really the time to engage in that and push it forward and start having potentially difficult conversations with people, uncomfortable conversations with people. And so, outside of my own work, I do a lot of volunteer work and community outreach through various programs here in New York. New York's a great place for that. But it's important to get into the classrooms, especially with younger students, and start engaging them with I'm a scientist, so scientific content from a young age to see if they're interested in it. And if it is, then build pathways and lay roads down for students in the future to be able to pursue an academic career.
Yeah, and I think something also is in a moment that we are so suffering a lot of, suffering is not the word, but, fighting and facing a lot of anti-intellectual work.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that comes from this idea that academia is an ivory tower and it's disconnected from people's day-to-day and people's reality, right? Yeah. I think what you said of getting out of your comfort zone, but also getting out of academia, bringing these conversations to the day-to-day, whether it's through volunteering, community service, the classroom, as a teacher, whether it is, community meetings and, other types of knowledge building spaces, right? That is not the academia is so important, because I think this is the one thing we forget, is that science and research is fundamental for our everyday lives, and we keep separating it as if it lived in a different world, and it doesn't, right?
Exactly. And there are ways to even incorporate that into your classroom in academia. You can get out of the classroom, but even in your classroom, if you're teaching undergrads or grad students, to just facilitate a classroom culture of we learn from each other, not I'm just lecturing at you and everything I say is correct and I know more than you do, but bring your knowledge, bring your experience, bring your stories. Let's share with each other. Let's talk to each other, because that's how learning has always been. It's always been horizontal to a certain extent, and academia has put this fake hierarchy on it where some people know everything and they're the experts in their field, but everyone's learning every day. So I love when my students bring me random tidbits of information and stories and things that I didn't know, and you learn every day.
Yeah, and it's always a collective exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you are writing a paper, you are reading other authors, and therefore you are in dialogue with, it's always a collective effort, even in its most individual format, right? Yeah. Knowledge is always a collective project, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think before we close this conversation, we wanted to do something like a little bit faster, a type of not so lightning, but a lightning round, so that you can give us and give our listeners some advice, right? And some inspiration as well. So that's the first thing I wanted to know. What truly inspires you about the work you do right now, even in these harder days?
This is really funny timing for this question. I just went to the annual conferences for my field of research, and it was such an eye-opening relief of an experience. Not relief, but it was so inspiring. It was the first time I went as a postdoc and not a grad student, and I've always felt like academia was sort of a community for me, but it was the first time where I feel like I had a seat at the table, at the big kids table, in a way. and got to engage in really hopeful conversations. It's really great to see that there are still academics who care about the community aspect of creating and facilitating knowledge. There are people who still look to be creative in the way that they teach. There are still people who care out there. And, after just being absorbed in the news, going there and seeing an entire, convention hall full of people who study very niche things but have this overarching goal of just pushing forward knowledge and spreading knowledge and changing the discourse around how people get knowledge was just so I was like, yes, this is why I'm here. I love being here.
This is why I've done this for.
Exactly. So that was super inspiring. I was just like, wow, I'm recharged. I have a reason. This is great.
It's part of finding your people again, right? Meeting your people. One thing that you wish you had known at the start of your PhD or the fellowship, one thing that you could, if you could give yourself an advice 8 years ago, what would it be with knowing what you know now?
Weirdly enough, I don't think I would give myself any advice. Part of, I think that's also a cop-out because I don't actually have an answer to that, but I think part of the experience is figuring it out as you go. No one has a handbook of this is what you're supposed to do, this is how it's going to go. Nobody has a crystal ball. And so just kind of rolling with the punches as they come is a skill in and of itself. So I'm kind of skirting the question because I don't really have an answer for it, but I also think that there is value in not having an answer for it. You take it as it comes. Who knows? The advice I would have given myself anyway, things may not have turned out that way. So,
or maybe that's the advice: is that there's no one way of doing this. Just roll it with it.
Yeah, just do it.
Other people also don't know what they're doing. Just keep going, or
exactly.
something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good a reminder maybe for. Yeah. And for people that, are curious about grad school, about doing the PhD and looking outside the road and saying, they're cutting funds on universities. Should I do this now? What advice would you give?
The pendulum swings back and forth, right? We are going through a bad time right now, but things will get better. We have to believe things will get better. Otherwise, what's the point of anything? And so if you do have an interest in going into academia, there's no time like the present, truly, because when things, we need a big pool of people to be able to even push the pendulum back in the other direction. But when it's there, you're already in. You're already started. Don't let the current sort of socio-political climate dampen your dreams, your goals. You got to keep pushing because at the end, the community has your back, but you have to be confident in yourself and you have to be the one who wants to push it forward.
Yeah, and I think one thing to add to that, even though I haven't finished this, but I keep trying to remind myself that the knowledge you build for yourself, what you read, your research, they are valuable on its own, and you might apply them inside academia. You might do something outside of academia, but the process of learning in itself is always there, right?
Exactly.
It's always something.
And you know what? They can't take that away from you.
Exactly. It's true. Another question is, you are in a position now in which you're mentoring earlier generations than yours, right? What is one thing that you think about when mentoring, or what's your one ask as a mentor of someone that is starting? What do you think they need to be ready for?
Flexible, I would say. They need to be ready for anything. everything's pretty uncertain, especially right now. But in general, academia is really uncertain. You know, you come into a PhD program, like I came in thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be done in 5 years. It's going to be easy peasy. I know exactly what I want to do. And then you have to pivot. Every step of the way you have to pivot. It's very rarely like a linear, straight shot, nice, smooth journey through this. And so the one thing I kind of emphasize with my students is keep an open mind, get as much experience as you can, even if it's not your ideal position, even if it's something that you don't know how to do, pick up those skills along the way, and somehow you'll like plinko your way into where you end up going, right? And if you remain positive, and also like if you like it, also if you don't like it, you don't have to make yourself stay in a situation you don't like. Yeah. But if you find that, you know, academia is a community that you really enjoy and you enjoy learning and you love the challenges of figuring out different solutions to different problems and you find passion in what you do, then, you know, you'll find it one way or the other. Just stay positive and keep going no matter where life takes you.
Do you have any final words of inspiration or anything that you are excited about your work right now? And also let us know where people can find you or follow more about your work.
I need to build, I hate saying this, I need to build more of a online presence, I suppose. So when I do get more of an online presence, I'll let you know. But my final words of advice, or like my things are like, this too shall pass. Like, keep fighting the good fight and keep doing what you love, because even finding joy in what you do is like really the best we could do right now. So
yeah, and it feels like this episode was all about transitions, and it feels like change and transition is the name of this game. Things will always be changing. We are always transitioning and pivoting. So I think that's a good way to close it, right? Mm-hmm. Is remembering that this is part of our change is the only constant that we can have right now.
Really well said. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Megan, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all of our listeners and viewers for joining as well. If this episode resonated with you, just please share it with someone that you think would enjoy listening to it. You can visit us at futuresinitiative.org, where we post the transcripts, resources, and show notes. You can also watch or listen to the Futures Initiative podcast on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Please like it, share it, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.